Hey guys, it's Charlie, and you're watching Wednesdays on Our Pagan Opinions, and this week we're talking about books. We're going to be talking about what were our first books on the craft, and how do they fit into our practice, and do we still use them, and things like that. So, I had two books when I first started on this path, back when I was 11 or 12, and I bought them at full price from, oh my goodness, where did I buy them from? I can't even remember the name of the bookstore. But I remember the bookstore, and I remember finding the books and having to pay full price. So I paid, well, $9.95 for one, and $12.95 for the other. And now that does not seem like very much to me at all. But I remember at the time, I only could afford two books. And these were the two that I chose. I don't think that they were my first choice, but I think that I chose them because I was able to buy two with the money that I had, so I must have only had about 20 bucks or something. But I bought two specific books. The first book I still use. I remember taking this book with me to school, and when I was finished with my homework, I'd look through this book and transcribe stuff and copy stuff down. The first book, I think we've all started out, this was probably one of everybody who has ever studied Wicca or gone on the path and found their spirituality through Wicca, this is probably one of their first books in the craft. And that book is called Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, and it's by Scott Cunningham. And he continues to be one of my favorite authors, one of my, I just like his style. I like, he seemed like his writing always, still seems, but he's obviously no longer with us, but his writing always kind of, I felt it was very accessible. It was not snooty, or there are certain authors that I've read that a lot of, I know, beginners read specific authors, and I feel that their writing style is either fake, or they overwrite, or they are kind of pretentious and they talk down to the reader. And I never felt any of those things with Scott Cunningham, so that's why he continues to be one of my favorite authors. Also, just because some of the stuff that he's written and the things that he talks about, discusses in his books, very much it resonates with me. So, not everything, but one thing that I do love about him is in one of his other books, he blatantly says, if what I say doesn't make sense to you and doesn't, you kind of raise your eyebrow at it, then find some other author, because they might have a different way that's better for you. So he's not one of those people, this is how it has to be because I said so, because I'm Scott Cunningham. He says, this is how it works for me. I know it works for a lot of other people, but if it doesn't feel like it works for you, then, take some of what I say that does work for you, but some other author might be out there that writes it in a way that's better for your particular way of learning or however. So, Wicca by Scott Cunningham. This was one of my first books. The second, that was my other first book, because I bought these two books, not these exact copies, because I let a friend borrow them about 2 years after I had purchased them, and then I never got them back, and my friend lost them. So these aren't the exact copies from when I was 11, but they're definitely the same titles and the same authors. So the other one that I had was the Wicca Spell book, and this is by Jarena Dunwich, or Garena Dunwich. I don't know. To be quite honest with you, I haven't really used this book that often. To this day, I still haven't. But the reason that I knew that I had this book is I was at Half Price Books, and I saw the cover, and I was like, this looks so familiar. This book looks crazy familiar. But I don't remember if I had this book or not. But it looked very, very familiar. And then I started looking through some of these spells in here, because that's basically what it is. It's different amulet spells and chants, and it's basically just a grimoire. It's not really much stuff in here about like how to or whatever. It's just different spells and stuff. And one of them, I actually have it dog-eared, is the Aphrodite love spell. And the reason that I knew that this book was one of the first books that I had is because I actually have that exact spell, word for word, written in my original Book of Shadows. Actually, hang on a second, let me grab it. Okay, so those of you who've been watching my videos for a while, you've seen probably on my personal channel my first Book of Shadows. This thing right here, well, it closes with like these stick things. And I actually bought this particular journal from the same bookstore that I purchased those two books at. And I have like the 13 Goals of a Witch. This is all stuff from when I was 11 years old. I have a shopping list pasted in there of what things I wanted to purchase. I don't look in here that often, but to save space, I would do this thing here. So it's stapled and it's pasted in there. But here, the Aphrodite Love Spell. And this is exactly the spell from that book. My two first books were Wicca by Scott Cunningham and the Wicca Spell book by Garina Dunwich, or Garina, I don't know how to say her name. Both those books. But the books that I find extremely valuable, okay, there's one book that I wish I would have read before I read all of the others. And that book is Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler. She's actually going to be in Illinois, or maybe she was already in Illinois. But I remember she's going to be near me soon, and I really wanted to go see her, but I can't. This book is fucking amazing. It's, it doesn't have many, if any, I can't remember now, rituals or anything in it, but it's all a study, a social study done on witches, druids, goddess worshippers, and other pagans in America. And it's extensive, and it shows you really how vast, how broad, how diverse our community and our culture really is. And all of the different, and the thing that I really like the most about it is that for a topic such as religion, it's very, very difficult to be completely objective. But Margot Adler does a pretty damn good job of staying objective, or as objective as possible, throughout this entire book. And I had to read it. This is actually one of the things I had to read for my year in a day. So I read this book cover to cover, and it's a pretty thick book, and it's awesome. So if anybody has the chance, and look at, there's a unicorn, a real one. I just love that picture. I gave it to my grandma. My grandma has cancer, so I found this picture online, and I sent it to her, and I told her that she had to heal because I just found her a unicorn, a real one. So, anyway, if you guys haven't read this book, read it. I probably wouldn't suggest reading it if somebody is like 13, because you might not understand some of the stuff. There's a lot of like politics that go on in this, different views and stuff that I think that kids who are a little bit younger, they're not going to care enough to want to read that. It's going to bore them to tears unless they're extremely like studious and they like that kind of stuff. But if you're a kid, stick with reading the books that are a little bit easier to digest. They don't involve all of like the politics side of or anything like that. So otherwise, if you guys are into like history and the pagan roots in America and where it all came from and speculation of where it all came from and all that stuff, this is an excellent, 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 highly recommended book to read. So these were my first two books. I'm so excited. I'm filming this on Sunday, so I haven't seen anybody else's videos for this week, but I'm so excited to see where everyone's beginnings came from, because if anybody's like me, I don't really even reference, well, the Wicca spell book I don't reference. I actually should go through there and find out which spells resonate with me and put them over into my Book of Shadows, but I don't know, it's more of, for me, a sentimental value, because those were the two books, the two titles that really got me started on this particular path. And though I'm not Wiccan anymore, I still find very much value in the information, especially that Scott Cunningham provides. So anyway, that's my video for this week, and I will see everybody next week. I love you, and blessed be.